Hey guys, so it is finally here, the Rekon FPV 7-inch long-range quad, classic 7-inch long-range quad. This is the Rekon 7 Pro that I'm holding in my hands here. There's going to be two versions. This is the analog version here, the actual production version. This is how it's going to be shipped, and a digital version of which I only have a prototype at the moment, which will feature a full DJI Air unit. Now, as a brand focused on long range, Rekon obviously does have to have a classic 7-inch long range quad in its lineup, because I mean, this is still, in my opinion, what performs best for real long range flying. I mean, it does have a few downsides compared to the ultralight concepts. It's a bit more noisy, it's way larger, it's a bit more annoying to carry around, but still, this is, let's say, the peak performance for long range. The flight times are great. You can get over 8 minutes on a 2200 milliamp hour 6S pack, way more than 20 on lithium ion packs, and you have, most important of all, you have a very high cruising speed. But I would say overall, this concept here of a dead cat 7-inch long range quad with big motors, these are 28 or 6.5, isn't new. This is something that already existed. So what I put my focus on in this development was really the details on this frame. You know, taking the existing concept of a 7-inch long-range quad, but really making a, for me, perfect design with all the detail solutions and this really attention to detail that I wanted to have. So what I'll do in this video is really go through all the details of this specific frame design and what my thoughts behind were. So the overall frame design, it's a dead cat, obviously. So front arms moved backwards to not have the props in your GoPro video feed, and neither are they in the FPV feed. And then what I tried to do is really, I mean, this is a big frame and it's got a very long body here, because we need some space for batteries, but I still wanted it to look kind of sleek and elegant and not like a huge bus. So what I wanted to do is have it low profile. So this is only a 20 millimeter standoff here. So the height you have for the stack is 20 millimeters, which is enough to comfortably fit a 30 by 30, but it makes this quite nicely low profile. We have 28 millimeters here in the front. So because this is a split deck design, so you can see that there are separate bottom plates here. It's a classic in frame design. So you have more space for the camera. But for a 7-inch, this thing is actually quite low profile. And that was what I was trying to do. I tried to keep it sort of as slim as possible. Still enough space for the batteries. But as you can see, the frame is just as wide as a regular 30 by 30 board. It sort of ends exactly here below the frame. So really try to make this look still, although it's very big, still make this look a bit sleeker and compact. Then the arm construction here, nothing too special. As I already mentioned, this is a split deck, but these are 6 millimeter arms, so rather thin arms because it helps with aerodynamics, and we don't need too much crash resistance, so 6 by 10. And what I did here, as you can see, this is something that isn't commonly used. This is M4, an M4 press nut, and these are M4 screws here. So this is the screw that is taking the bulk of the load. So I decided to move up from M3, which really seems undersized on this big joint here, to an M4 holding the arms. So after having the, let's say, overall frame construction ready, the carbon parts, what I did was focus on the TPU parts. So this was actually the thing that took the most time here to make these TPU parts perfect, because as you can see, there's a few details that really are quite important. So you may have noticed that this does come with two Immortal T antennas. That is because it does have a crossfire diversity receiver, and as far as I know, it's the only BNF quad you can get with a crossfire diversity receiver. So basically it's two receivers in one, and Crossfire is able to switch between the one that has the best connection. So what's the advantage? Well, obviously you can have one antenna here, the folding one in the front, vertical, and the other one horizontal. So no matter how you turn this quad, in any direction, you're gonna have at least one antenna that is perfectly oriented. And in my experience, this makes a pretty big difference in practice, because you often have these short cutouts or telemetry losses when you're basically looking at the antenna exactly like this. It's always an issue for like a few seconds. This really solves this problem. But obviously I had to integrate two antennas. So we have the one in the rear here mounted quite classically. It's got an extra long connecting cable here. So this goes all the way to the front to the receiver. And then we have this one here. Let me just zoom in for a second. This one here in the front. So obviously a vertical antenna is very annoying if you're trying to carry your quad around and put it in a backpack. So this is, just as on the Rekon 5, a folding one. So if you carry around the quad, just fold it. If you fly, you unfold it. Now, this might put some strain on the wire here, on the Immortal T. I've been using the Rekon 5 for probably at least 6-7 months with this folding mount here, and I didn't break a single Immortal T, but maybe over the course of 2 years this might break this this connection here. But then again, these antennas aren't super expensive, and I think it's worth the advantage of having the diversity and the practicality of a folding antenna. Now this mount here is integrated on this TPU. Let's say the pivoting part is mounted on this TPU part here that is between the standoffs. This may be a bit hard to show in video, but as you can see here, hidden behind, or between rather, these two standoffs is a small buzzer. Now this is an independent buzzer. This is one of the buzzers. It does have here on the bottom a small battery. One of the buzzers that works even if you unplug the battery. So every time you unplug the battery, a few seconds later it will start beeping. You can still access the little button here. You push this button and then it stops beeping. I think most of you will be familiar with these buzzers, and it was important to me to use the space in the frame here, and nicely integrate this in the frame. And then again, it's also, this TPU part is also the mount for the folding antenna here. So now let's switch over to the digital version. This is not a production model, that's a prototype I worked on. And here, that actually was the thing that took the most work, to build a decent TPU mount for this DJI Air unit that is ungodly difficult to fit in any frame because it doesn't have any mounts. So I sort of had to figure out how to mount this in here in a clean way, and how to also mount the antennas, which really wasn't easy. So basically this sitting here in a TPU part. In the production version here, the USB-C will be accessible without any issues. Here this is still covered a bit. And then basically we have a second TPU part that is here sitting on top, and there's a little lid here going over the air unit. So this is securely locked here. This isn't going anywhere. It's not moving at all. Then I used the rear mount for the GPS here to integrate the mount for the antennas, and this also has a little lid here that slides over the unit, so it's also not moving, going anywhere here in the front. And then basically we have the antennas locked here. That was the most difficult thing to implement, because I didn't really want to have any SMA connectors and stuff, because this takes so much space. I still wanted this to be compact. As you can see, there's only very little space between the actual antennas and the air unit. On all other frame designs, if you look at a camera, for example, there's much more space here in the rear. This is all the way bigger. So I tried to make this as compact as possible by having basically the antennas locked in here with a piece of TPU that you just slide on. This has you can just pop this on the antenna, and then you push it in, really secures it nicely. And that was basically, I mean, looks simple if now that it's done, but that was really complicated to find such a nice clean design. And then it also integrates the GPS here in the rear. And as you might notice, this is a pretty big GPS. It's much bigger than a BN180. This is the Pro GPS, the HDLRC, how is it called? M80 Pro GPS. it's got a larger ceramic antenna, and what you'll notice, it just locks satellites much quicker and more of them. It's a noticeable difference. And this thing also does have a compass, so if you want to run iNav, you can do it. Now, we disabled it on Betaflight because it led to some weird behavior, but this does have a compass and this is fully iNav ready. iNav is also compatible with the F7 flight controller that is in here. Alright, now last but not least, the motors. So these are the new Rekon FPV 2806.5 motors with the sort of corporate design colored red and black bell here. Rather sturdy bell design, because obviously if you hit this, there's going to be quite a lot of momentum behind the quad. Also nicely matches this gold hardware that we put all over the quad here, the gold M3s. Now this motor in its specification actually isn't anything super special, so the motor supplier already had a 2806.5 in its lineup that I liked so much how it behaved that I just decided to basically reuse the exact motor specification, but to put our own bell on there. It's got a hollow shaft titanium 5mm shaft here, so very powerful motor, very efficient, really nice and smooth, noticeably, in my opinion, the absolute best you can get at the moment for 7-inch props. So other small things I wanted to mention now. This here also does have this extra brace here in the front, because this basically, when you crash, this is what you will hit. Because it's a dead cat, you're not going to hit the arms, you can hit the nose part here, so it's got some extra carbon mounted here in the front. Then we have, the mounts are actually, this is 30 by 30, there's also smaller 20 by 20 mounts in this plate here, if for some reason you need them. I don't know why you would use anything else than 30 by 30 on such a build. The capacitor nicely integrated here in the frame. This is actually an idea that the guys from HDRC had, so it's got a big capacitor, but it's completely hidden in the frame. Doesn't, it's not on the XT60 or anywhere or taking any space in the frame. Nicely here between both plates. And in the rear, again, 20 by 20 mounts, and these are 30 by 30 mounts. So everything in here is fully secured and stacked. So the buzzer is nicely secured in TPU. The VTX is mounted. So I think this thing, although it is pretty compact for a 7-inch, it's actually very easy to build. You just stack everything up in here and it's all usually quite smooth and easy. So what more can I say? Yeah, the frame is around 175 grams, including the TPU. That's important, including all the TPU parts, around 175 grams. I don't know what the production version will weigh exactly, because I don't actually have one. I just received the BNF. I actually don't have a production frame. It is separate from the components, but I expect this to be around 175 grams. In the box, it will come with the folding props. Now, I really like how these props behave because they're very, very smooth for some reason. They're a bit slower in cruising speed, but extremely smooth. Now, for long range flying, honestly, I don't know if I trust them 100%. I always fear that it could lose the blade, that over time this could wear out the joint here. So it also does come with the regular Gemfan tri-blades here, which are a bit more aggressive and faster, but they're actually a bit slower and less aggressive than the bi-blades. The bi-blades, for some reason, made the quad cruise very, very fastly, but they also cost a lot of flight time, so these tri-blades here are a nice compromise. Alright, now if you like the Rekon 7 Pro and want to get one, now obviously this is going to be in our Rekon FPV online shop. It will also be with all the usual resellers like Banggood, Get FPV, and so on. So I'll put all the links I have in the video description. I cannot talk about pricing yet. I'm doing this video a few days before the release, so I'm not 100% sure what the exact prices are. Honestly, I'm not really involved in the pricing. This is something that basically HDRC does based on the component prices, which change all the time at the moment. So they're trying to get this as cheap as possible. But at the moment, unfortunately, in FPV prices are going up. So I hope we can still keep this reasonably priced. All right, guys. Thanks for watching the video. Hope you liked the quad and the video. And yeah, if you want to support my channel, don't forget to subscribe. Bye bye, guys.